And we're gonna go to the shooting range here. So what is up, guys? Today is a video on improving your loadout making skills. Now we're going to the shooting range, and there's a couple of builds that I've exclusively made just to show off. God, that is a horrible glitch. I don't want to look at Victor. I don't want to look at gay boy band Victor. Go away. Shoot. That is not the Victor skin that I should be having equipped. I'm going to have to change it afterwards. You're going to have to remind me. Okay, you were supposed to remind me. I have coffee. My coffee is... well, I think it's ready.
The strength of the team is each member. And the strength of each member is the team.
That's nice. Alright, so an example I'm going to start off with Tyra. Now, here's why. So let's start off with Tyra. So, we're going to do Burn Monster. Now, a lot of people think that if you're working on a cooldown build, that you just simply take one card that you have that you're trying to work around. So in this case, we're building around Tyra's Firebomb. So, okay, there's a card for reducing the cooldown of your Firebomb. There's a card we can take for that. That's called Volatile. I believe it's this build right here, yes. Right? So that reduces the cooldown of Firebomb by 5 seconds. And then there's another card called Primal Might, where eliminations reduce all cooldowns by 50%. So a lot of people, when they're building, they'll just do that. Now notice I just picked the other cards at random. That's fine. I'll explain that later on. So this is what I call one-trick ponying, and it's not very effective. Why? Because Primal Might is only there because of Burn Monster, because of the Firebomb. They want to reduce the cooldown on that. They don't care about the other cards. I put the health cards in. They would probably have other cards. They would probably have, you know, Firebomb reduces healing even further. They would have, maybe something around the grenade launcher. Like here, they've reduced cooldown of the grenade launcher by 1.5 seconds. As an example, it's overkill. You kind of don't need to do some of these things. Let me explain why. So let's start. Burn Monster, and this right here. This doesn't have... oh no, that does have the Primal Might in it. I don't have a loadout, a base loadout. No, I do. No, I do. All right. So 10% cooldown reduction is as low as we're gonna go, right? This is just a base loadout. This is something built around something entirely different. Let's go over here just because I like going over here. That's why.
Had enough?
Yep, I can take a headshot. Good. Alright, I also need to turn the volume down for me because I did not expect it to be this loud. So, let me show you. So the cooldown on your Firebomb has a cooldown of 18 seconds on it.
There's some
The duration is 6 seconds.
First blood. Keep up the good
That
work.
kills her on Burn Monster. So, you have to look. We're at 8 seconds right now before the cooldown comes back. Now let's try a new loadout. Now, that's just base. Now, this is what the next one we're gonna do is the volatile build. This is the build I don't recommend. All right. You throw the Firebomb. Watch your cooldown. It's 13 seconds. It does have a 6-second duration.
It never dies.
So you look, about 7 seconds and it's done. That's definitely an improvement. Okay. Next one we're going to look at is with just cooldown reduction. Right? This is the build that I run. This is the build I advocate for. So it's 18 seconds for duration.
Killing spree.
5-second cooldown. 5-second cooldown. Okay? That is definitely the way to go. Because you can constantly keep spamming almost infinite firebombs at that point. Ah! Bad idea. Wrong button. Sorry. Alright, so this is the build that I don't encourage. This is what I call the one-trick pony build. So you notice Volatile wasn't as effective. But what if you put the two cards together and you just max it out and you have a super cooldown extravaganza? Buy one, get one, cooldown 50% off! That was funny.
Burn Monster.
Okay. So the cooldown is already at 5 seconds. It's already 5 seconds off. And that brings it down to 2 seconds. Why wouldn't you want to run a build like that? Let me explain why.
Careful. I bite back.
Rampage!
Like this. They're getting frisky.
The gods.
And I just killed myself.
I can afford
The
more
reason
supplies.
why it's not effective to stack that much. Do you have a problem with a 5-second cooldown compared to a 2-second cooldown? On an ability like that has a long-term duration, you don't need to take the 5 points in that. In a situation like this, if you want to run a build like that, if you want to run volatile, that's fine. You can still do that. As an example, take some of the points off of volatile and put them into something else. If you notice that my primary build, what is the one link in common in all three of those builds? Use me, hunting party, and cooldown. There's the same card is level 5 on Tyra. What is it? Ta-ta-da! Salamander High. Reduce self-damage Sigma from Firebomb by 100%. Why do I run that card? So I don't fuck off and die all the time. And you notice that I have the ability to do that. Another thing a lot of people shit on are your health cards, okay? Hold up. Oh, I've got to pick a build just to switch. Okay, so another thing I want to look at are your health cards. Let's take a look at Inara, right? I don't care. Let's just pick Mother's Grace. This doesn't have any health cards in it. And oh, yes, it does. It has Steadfast. Motherfucker. Alright, well, her base health is 475. So picking this... No, wait. This brings her to 5150. I don't run that. Right?
I have many credits.
My builds always max out health cards. Why? Because it is helpful in survivability situations. Actually, rather than use a Nara, I need a champion where their base loadout doesn't have any extra health. Let's try Shaolin.
I should spend my
I
credits.
don't think Shaolin's... No, I don't see Swagger. Yeah, it's got Swagger. God damn it. Hold up. I think the base build always has 5. Eh, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You know what? No, I'll stick with Tyra.
Supplies.
Let's stick with Tyra there. Right? Alright, so her base health is actually 2400. So where's the damage shooting range? That's Kip. That's this guy. This is the Cassie. Ah.
Did you see that?
Alright, so. We're gonna count how many shots I can hit. 1, 2, 3. I died at 4. Okay. Now we're gonna switch build.
I can afford more supplies.
This is my primary build. This increases my health. How many shots can we take?
Did you see that?
1, 2, 3. Still only 4. What's the difference though? You notice how my health was higher? Right. So that is a situation that I think you need to realize is... Let's try it now. She's dead, and I took 3 shots, and she's still... What? Oh, I forgot I shouldn't move. Anyway,
more supplies.
anyway, it's too early in the morning. Like I said, I haven't had my coffee yet. Hold on. That's a situation that really should come to mind. That extra health. Now, what if I'm on a regular build?
I can
now, what if I'm on...
supplies.
Enemy rampage!
The health too much. What if I'm on this build? So I don't have that extra 200 health.
Did you see that?
I still survive with the 410. And I'm gonna die right there just for the hell of it.
They just...
So, I still have that same health, but the difference is, what about the next
An
encounter?
enemy is unstoppable!
Right? Oh, I need to...
I can afford more supplies.
So, in the next encounter now, I have 200 less health. Because you have to realize in Paladins, one of the keys to survivability is your constant ability to continue flowing. I compare Paladins a lot to a fighting game in terms of how you have to flow in combat, going from offense to defense very quickly. And that's pretty much the same for most shooters. If you look at competitive Call of Duty matches, you're going to see how teams will very quickly go from being on the offensive to the defensive in simple TDMs. Just by one team starting to get an advantage and one team bringing it back. The point I'm trying to make is you have to switch from offense to defense very aggressively. And the more health you have, the more aggressive you can be. Another example would be a tank. But what tank do I want to run? I'll do Makoa because of Leviathan.
I still have credits to spend.
Alright? So, Makoa is another interesting champion here. We'll run the tank build. Now, if you look again, looking at my cooldown duration here, this is kind of a shielding build. This is every 3,000 damage, your shield absorbs, you reduce the cooldown by 5 seconds. So, your shield is 6,000 health. If your shield is outright destroyed, you take the cooldown down by 10 seconds. This means you don't have to run Chronos. Now, on another build, on a pluck build, which is my strong arm, again, I have cooldown reduction in here. It's 2 seconds off, because there's not really a card based around eliminations. Actually, let's switch champions. Okay, so the next one would be Leanne. People do call me a bit of a hypocrite when they look at my cooldowns. They say, well, why do you say you don't need to stack multiple cooldown cards, and yet you do the same thing? Well, look at Leanne. So I have the card where eliminations reduce cooldown by 50%. Which is the same thing I tell people to run on Tyra. But I have the other three, quote-unquote, filler cards in your loadout, because there's no such thing as a filler card in your loadout, if you're being honest. You can call it a filler card. It's not that. You notice my builds all primarily have the same build. Health card when applicable. Characters like Skye and Talus don't have the health card, so that's 5 more points I put to something else. You know what I have for that? I still have something based around health. For Skye, I don't. For Skye, she's my anti-tank. So, for her, she's built around cooldown reduction again, which I'll show off later. Chronos should not be taken all the time. I think Chronos is a crutch. And it annoys me on certain tanks when people take Chronos. Especially if you have a really good ultimate ability. You should be taking morale boost. Especially if you have a really slower... Especially if you're a tank or you have a need to get on the point quickly. Master Rider. I'm not a fan of Nimble. To be honest, I really only use it on a damage tank build or a flank that I need to move around. I don't run it on Tyra. I'll run it on Vivian because I do have a build on Vivian, which I'll show off in a little bit, that is just insane movement speed. And I do kind of want to show that off. But I'm going to equip this. Let me show you why right here. So I need to come over here. Okay. Now, this is a little bit of an unfair situation because Skye is one of the lower health champions in the game. So my shots do a lot more, by the way. Okay, so you do get a nice headshot damage. Alright, so... I'll wait for her to heal up. I just wanted to test that. I always test that. So now watch. So I slide backward. Oh, I meant to slide backward.
Double kill. Killing spree.
Get out of my way.
Double kill. Triple kill.
And you see how easily the cooldowns are resetting on this build.
Pentakill.
Pentakill! I love Bomb King when he says pentakill and hexakill. Hexakill! Yeah, it's training. Nobody gives a shit. But you see how easily the cooldowns kept continuously resetting. Now, the eliminations helped, but in between, those little shots in between, because you have to look at her loadout, I'm only shaving off 0.2 seconds with my regular shots, and 1 second with my regular shot, and 1.5 seconds with my regular shot. On 4, 5, and 15 second cooldowns, that is critical, because shaving off that little bit in the times in between. What if I was running up against multiple tanks? Actually, that's a good idea. Let's go shave that off.
I should spend this pittance.
you see my banners.
Let's come
Run.
on over here. Alright, now what if I was going up against a full team of tanks right here? Right? So... Now, sure, that helps on the cooldowns.
Double kill. That's 11 in a row.
As he misses the shot.
Triple kill.
I should spend this pittance. Kneel.
That's 13 in a row.
Notice how many shots you're missing, because you're constantly strafing, you're on the move, you're missing all these wonderful shots. And you see how the cooldowns are resetting in between.
Kneel.
Triple kill.
And you need that. You notice how many shots I was missing there. Now, I was missing those shots on purpose. I don't normally move around a lot like
Not
that.
yet.
But that was just an example of what I'm trying to showcase. It's those little shots that you do hit, reducing the cooldown in between times, you get that burst cooldown reduction. There's something I want to show you, and I'm going to do it with Genos. So this is an example of what I call burst cooldown. You have burst cooldown reduction and static cooldown reduction. It's something I picked up from my RPG time with Diablo and a few other games like that. Burst cooldown reduction is when you get that sudden drop in cooldown reduction off the elimination. So, again, let's show that up.
You're mine.
And how everything almost completely resets off the elimination. That's a burst. A static cooldown reduction is when... Oh. A static cooldown reduction is when you have cooldown permanently reduced. You can stack that with burst. That's what I was referring to with Tyra. Is that static cooldown reduction compared to the burst cooldown reduction. How stacking the two is effective, but it's not as effective. Burst cooldown reduction is effective on longer cooldowns. Static cooldown reduction is effective on shorter cooldowns. Now, looking at... Actually, I think Genos is probably the wrong person to use to try this with. So let's try this with Ceres. I think I have the build for Ceres for it. Yeah.
I must spend the credits.
So the Void Abides and then use me. Or Speed Boost. Either or will work. Let's just do Speed Boost for the hell of it. So, let's go over here. The static one is better. Let's activate so he takes it. It's 2 seconds every time. It doesn't burst down. It's 2 seconds every time. How long can we keep him alive for?
Double kill.
Did we set it off successfully? I think we did. That was just kind of fucking around a little bit. But that's an example of a static cooldown reduction, right? It's always at 2 seconds. The cooldown reduction is always at 2 seconds. Now, you have a champion like Pip. Pip is a burst cooldowner. We'll do Mega Potion with the Use Me. Because this has... So... Get closer.
Did you see that?
No, it's not armor. Right? So for every ally hit, I reduce cooldown by a certain amount. That's great, but it's hit or miss. Okay? Because what happens if I miss a lot of allies? What happens if I'm constantly missing the healing potion, whether they're moving or not? So that's an example of static versus burst. Static is always good because you're guaranteeing cooldown reduction. Whereas burst is better because you have the potential for taking more off and in a better situation. So this is where I'm talking about making sure your cooldown. Now, one of the things I've gone on long enough about cooldown reduction. Another thing you need to realize is your burn cards really do matter. And let me show you why. Change champion. Let's go to Moji, because Moji is my main.
These shiny things.
Get my nice golden Moji. Right? So looking at the build right here, the thing you're going to see the most of, I think actually I can probably just leave the... I should be able to just leave and go and do this from the character select screen. What you're going to see when I start showing off some of the builds is how important your burn cards are. Now, I've talked about running that max health because you need the survivability in between encounters, and I've talked about cooldown reduction. Another thing I think a lot of people shit on are the ammo cards and how effective the ammo cards actually are for you. So, I keep forgetting Victor's not on the bottom anymore. So, looking at Victor, by the way, I need to change... He should be equipped.
Victor.
There we go. That's better. So, looking at this, the ammo is important. Especially on Victor. Looking at this build right here, it's a 38 round magazine and eliminations reset 18 ammo. Because I don't look at Victor as a cooldown based champion. He has a grenade, which is 8 seconds, and you can knock some of that cooldown off if you can hit your grenade. Again, I'm a master of, if your accuracy is there, you should reduce your cooldown. Reward yourself for your own accuracy. Don't punish yourself for your inaccuracy. Because a lot of people run cards built around inaccuracy, about making up for their flaws. I don't necessarily think you should build around your flaws and try and cover up your weakness. Expose your weakness. Pull down your pants and show it to the world. No, don't do that, please. But the point is there. If you're good at something, build around that. You notice that my aim is really fucking good when I want to be. When I'm not fucking around. When I'm being real serious. So my iron sight build on Victor works best for me. Because the 100% reduced recoil in iron sight, it is rock solid aim. Bang, 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 blang. I like blang better than bang. Blang, blang, you're dead. The problem with this is, so, in a close range encounter, oh, I gotta spray and pray, but that's fine. Build around what you're good at. Don't build around your flaws to try and hide them. Now, if you want to experiment a little, I understand. I have experiment builds. I have a Leon build that's built around speed. I call it superiority, and it's entirely built around speed. It is entirely speed, 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 speed. I cannot be slowed below 100% of max of your base movement speed. I get 15% movement speed for 3 seconds after using Grace. It's built entirely around that speed, speed, speed concept. And that's a flaw for me because I don't really move around too much. So, this to me kind of helps me out. And this is a build that I would run Nimble on. Which, that's a very stark contrast to my other build, which is built around cooldown reduction for hitting my shots. So you look, you can have a build for exploiting a weakness. With Leon, what's my problem? My strength with Leon is I can hit the majority of my shots, so I build around cooldown reduction so I can continue to hit more of my shots faster. Yes, she does have auto-aim. Shut up. Don't remind me. That has nothing to do with it. You know the amount of inane assholes that I see randomly shooting at the wall with auto-aims. It's bullshit. It's an auto-aim. Don't shoot the wall. Just shoot in the general vicinity of the enemy and something will hit. Another concept I want to show off is, we've talked about health cards. The extra ammo cards are very helpful. For Tyra, for example, if you look at my primary build on Tyra, I have an extra 6 ammo because I feel comfortable with her at a 32 round magazine. See, when Cards Unbound was here, Tyra was one of my main champions. Tyra was quote-unquote my main. Tyra and Grover were neck and neck with me. And Tyra, I had locked and loaded at level 3. And I wanted to increase that card, I always did. And so what's funny to me is, when I made a build, I basically ran the same thing I did in Cards Unbound, and I just fucked around with the card values. There's some cards I completely never used. Let me take these out, because I'm not going to use those ever. But, I used to have Bandolier at 8. That's a 4-second cooldown reduction on the grenade launcher. Right? That's a 5-second grenade launcher. That was with Cards Unbound. And so I used to run that. I don't run that anymore. Well, because I can't get it up to 8. And that's a waste of 5 points. This is another thing I feel I should mention as well. If you look at a lot of my cooldowns, especially on healers, with the exception of Maldamba, where the cooldown reduction, it's reduced the cooldown by 2 seconds. And then we go up to, where the fuck did they move Furia? You go to Furia. 1 second. Notice how it's almost always at 4 instead of 5. The extra half second is a waste of a point because the game doesn't register. You're connected. Fucking hell. Getting stuck. Alright, alright. It's amateur hour. It's early in the morning. I haven't had my coffee. Notice how every time I say I haven't had my coffee, I have a drink of coffee. Hashtag coffee in the morning. So, what were we saying? Cooldown. Half second. The game doesn't register cooldowns that are in values of less than a half or a quarter of a second. In the case of Fury, it's a quarter of a second. Look at your build on a champion, and this is something very important. If they have cards in their loadout that reduce cooldowns by 1 second, like, for example, Sky. Sky's a fairly easy one. I can do the smoke grenade and show off. Alright, so this is reduce the cooldown by 1 second, whereas this reduces cooldown by half-second intervals. What that means for the champion is the champion does not register cooldown values that are less than a half a second. Looking at Fury, I think Fury is the only example really where it has quarter-second cooldowns, where you have abilities. She does have other abilities, they're just not in this build, where it reduces by quarter of a second. And then you can look at the reset build, and the reset build will show you full second on the Wings of Wrath and half second on the Stoke the Fire there. So those cooldowns reset at different intervals. It means that for Fury, cooldowns don't reset below a certain value. And if you're planning on getting Chronos in-game, because remember, it doesn't shave off as much as you think until you get to Chronos 2. Let me explain. Ceres. Now look at Ceres. Let's say I have no cooldown reduction whatsoever. It's the base 4-second cooldown. It is 4 seconds, correct? Chronos 1 is 10%. Okay? You don't even shave off a second. What you want to weigh is how much time are you actually shaving off if you're gonna buy Chronos. Chronos is tied for the most expensive item in game that you can buy. Just because you're a healer does not mean you need Chronos if you have cooldown reduction. Do I buy Chronos for Ceres? No. Because my healing builds, I have a 2-second cooldown. If I'm running damage Ceres, then yes. Why? Because I need to take the cooldown off of Ren's Soul. Because I'm running a damaged Ceres. I'm running an Agony Ceres. If I'm running Healing Ceres, I don't need it because I already have my primary ability. The primary ability you're going to use the most is what makes you decide if you're going to get Chronos. Now, looking at Tyra, do you get Firebomb? If you're building around Firebomb, are you going to get Chronos? No, if you have the right build. I already showed you that build that I showed you with the cooldown reduction. The 50% cooldown reduction on elimination was without Chronos. That's a 5-second Firebomb without Chronos. Yes, it's predicated around you getting an elimination. That's fine. What I didn't show you was what happens. I just chucked a Firebomb and let Sky die, right? I didn't even shoot her because you have a gun. This is the thing I want to tell Adroxus players. Hey, Adroxus players, just because you can fist people doesn't mean that you should. It's an inappropriate thing to do in public places. Going off a little bit there. You have a gun. Use it. Don't just sit there. I love the Adroxus that they just walk around the map. You get my point. You have a gun. It's the same thing. So, that's my point, is that you have multiple abilities, and what you're primarily going to use affects how you should buy your items in-game, and how you should build your cooldowns. You know, for example, if you are... oh god, Furia. If you're Furia, and you plan on using Solar Blessing, so then you know you're going to have a longer cooldown, you should run a reset build, which is similar to what I have. You have to look, your cooldown is 12 seconds, and your cooldown on Wings of Wrath is 10 seconds. If you're planning on using Solar Blessing, a reset build is helpful, because Solar Blessing is going to be your primary healing ability, and not Cherish. I call Men's Soul Cherish. Get the fuck over it. So this is going to help you out more because you reduce the cooldown of your Wings of Wrath because that reduces the cooldown of Pyre Strike. And the two go hand in hand and stack with Chronos. Another thing I do want to mention, healers, stop buying Life Rip. I get it. Here's what you don't realize. When you heal people and they get a kill, that counts as an assist for you. You want kill to heal. Yes, kill to heal is not as effective at tier 1, and it's non-existent at tier 1, let's be honest. And at tier 2, it's not as effective compared to Life Rip. But if your job is to be the healer and you're focusing on healing, then you shouldn't be doing damage. This is what annoys me about Furia. How Furia is able to do 100k damage so easily compared to healing. It's easier for her to do 100k damage than it is for her to do 100k healing. And that's a problem. You look at a character like Ceres. You look at Jenos. You look at Damba. You look at fucking hell. You look at Pip. Pip can out-heal his damage because Mega Potion is 2400 and you hit multiple people and that's a lot of healing. A lot. You're able to out-heal the damage that you do for the most part. Grover's another one, with him being a passive healer. I think Ying and Fury are probably the biggest offenders in terms of not being able to out-heal their damage. Grok is another one that can do it. But the problem is, you need to be able to balance that. If you are a healer, your job is to heal. So kill to heal is what you want to run because it helps you. And again, that affects your cooldown. Where I talk about running the extra health, running that extra card for the... Put 5 points if it's increase your health by 250. If it's increase your health by 500. If it's increase your health by 375. I don't know why I'm making this arm motion. Somebody please help me. If you're reducing your health, increasing your health by 750, it doesn't matter. Ow. The point is, you're increasing your health so that you actually have more time for kill to heal to kick in. You have more time for Life Rip to be effective. You have more time because this game is all about time. In terms of, like I said, going from offense to defense, that plays in the timing. Your timing becomes critical in terms of how you manage your health. Especially if you're a tank. Like, one of the reasons why people shit on Barrack a lot, look at him. He's the lowest health tank in the game. He doesn't have a high offensive powered weapon. Okay, it's 500 damage a shot at close range, and you have to be in close range. And you're lucky if you can add 100 damage at longer range. You have a deployable shield with a long cooldown that you have to walk, that people can just walk through or destroy. Whatever they want to do, they kind of just own you. You're the little Barrack bitch. And you have turrets! And these wonderful turrets, these bastions of Barrack that sit there and they shoot your foes! I don't know why he suddenly turned French, but just roll with it. And they shoot your foes! And they heal you if you build him the right way. And they heal you when he dies! And all they have to do is kill him. All they have to do is kill the turrets. And then you're all alone, and you're stuck with the healer, who's probably not healing you, and you're stuck with the flank, who's standing behind you the whole time saying, "Help! Help me! Oh! Ah! Ooh! Ah! Ooh! Ah! I only have 2,000 health!" And Barrack's sitting there looking, "I'm lucky if I have 1,000 more health than you. Fuck off and kill something." And now you know why people shit on Barrack. And yet there are Barracks that are OP as fuck out there that murder everybody, myself included. I'm not gonna be humble about that. You see my levels with everybody, right? Okay, as long as you don't stick me on the 2 snipers, I'm good. So, you have to realize that the reason why people think that a champion is quote-unquote off meta, by the way, there's no such thing as a meta in this game. This is not Overwatch. The game mode is always the same. It's Siege. Just because they affect the champion values doesn't mean jack shit. If people can go over to casual play and fuck your ass over as Skye, and then you go over to competitive and shit on Skye and say she's the worst tank in the game as she goes out and gets a pentakill and melts your team, fuck off. There's no such thing as a meta in this game. Now that I've gotten my Paladin's PSA out of the way, what were we saying? Off-meta champions. There's no such thing as an off-meta champion. Barrack is a strong frontline, if you know how to play him. Ruckus is a strong frontline, if you know how to play him. People say Torvald and Barrack can't run frontline by themselves. Bullshit. I have a solo tank build for both of them. It's all about knowing how to play your champion. And I think that's one of the things that starts with is cooldown. Another thing I will recommend, I mean not cooldown, loadout, sorry. Once again, I'm tired. It's too early in the morning. Hashtag need coffee. By the way, I sweeten my coffee with strawberry syrup. I don't put milk in it or anything. So if people think I'm wired, it has nothing to do with the coffee. I'm normally wired like this. It's actually the coffee that keeps me calm. You may not believe me, and I honestly don't care. So learning how to play your character is about builds. Another thing I want to say. Let's look at Torvald. I'm just going to pick Torvald because we were just talking about Torvald. Right. So I need a loadout. Because the default loadout is trash. Don't run default loadouts. I see people that say, well, I'm good on the default loadout. Bitch, I don't give a fuck. It's the default loadout. You're no better than a bot at that point. Alright? I will admit that the bots are good because the bots are guaranteed to miss their first shot, but they don't miss anything else. Because they have a kind of a fair, quote-unquote, fair balancing system. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of hooey. So, I need a build for Torvald. What do I do? I pressed the wrong button. Okay, let's try that again. I need a build for Torvald. What do I do? Don't press the wrong button. Okay, so you go to import. So there's things right here. Oh, search by name. I don't have time for that. I need to take a picture of my foot and then send it to my friend who's going to send me some avocado toast pictures. Fuck off, millennials. So then you look at search friends, right? Well, you don't know any friends. You're a hobo. You're living in your mother's basement. You're crying over that spilt bottle of milk in the corner that's been spilled since 1984. You're not a millennial at 1984, but who gives a shit? I just picked a year out of my ass. Deal with it. You scratched your ass because you picked a number out of it, so you figured it was kind of itchy. And you decided that this conversation started going nowhere and this analogy has just become rambling. Fuck that, let me have some coffee. And you decide while you're having coffee that you need a Torvald build. And you don't have any friends that play Torvald, that have this game, have any friends in general, or have a life. So you can't search by friends. What does everybody do? Go to the leaderboard! Go. My apologies to Liamberg558. I will unceremoniously be shitting on your build. It is a very effective build for you. You keep doing you, boo-boo, but I gotta shit on your build temporarily. So you look at this build right here. This is the build that he runs. Now, by the way, this looks to me like kind of a solo tank build, by the looks of it. It's not a lot of increase in his base health, reduce cooldown and recharge. He could be using that with the card where recharge lasts longer, and then he's got shielding speed, that's good, and then the other two that give him a big chunk of shielding when he activates them. So that's a pretty decent build. It's decent. It's not something I would run. And this is, again, where I'm picky about my builds. You should be picky about your build. Don't take a build off the leaderboard. Don't do it. Take a build off a friend of yours if you have it. If you don't have friends, like I said before, you're a 1984 millennial living in your mother's basement because of something. God damn, who started the fucking blender? Anyways, I don't know if you can hear me off the sound of this obnoxiously loud blender in the back. That's better. Then what you want to do is you want to experiment. Build your own. You want to know why I'm good with everybody? Because I found builds that worked for me. The health cards worked for me. The cooldown reduction, like I said, build around your strengths. Don't cover up your weaknesses. Build around your strength. An example is this, right? You know that there's a Dutch story about the kid with the kid that he saw a hole in the dike. That is not an offensive term. Look up what dike means. It is a form of damming that the Netherlands uses to keep themselves from flooding to death. So he found a hole in the dam and he put his finger in it to block the hole. And he slept there all night with his finger in the hole just to keep the town from flooding. It's a fairy tale. Whatever. The point still stands. Now, the town was so happy with what they did that they came in the morning, they fixed it up, and they gave him a parade and weird shit like that. What you have to realize is there's a similar mentality here. He didn't just simply try and pick up some dirt or some mud off the ground, patch the hole himself, and walk away. He built around his strength. He built around his strength as a character. He gave up the night of sleep to keep the town safe. He didn't just patch it up, say I covered the hole, and went home, and then his house flooded because it burst open. Same thing still stands. My survivability is crap in game. Like I can prove this. Okay, history. Right. Look at my KD. Look at my KD. Every single game, my death column is 2 digits. Every single. Now, if you look at a lot of my wins, I backed it up with a decent performance. Then in R1, I could do nothing. Some of these I couldn't do anything about. Again, my team was fucking around here. My team was fucking around here. My team was fucking around here. This was legitimate. We were trying something. I was trying a new build here, and this was actually rather a close game, believe it or not. And then on this one right here, I couldn't do anything because my team was fucking around. Like, my team was fucking around half the time on these games, which is why we lost. And I was able to hard carry sometimes, like the Koga and the Moji game. But my point is, you build around your strength, and yes, it does highlight your weakness, but that's something that your teammate should help you with. It's a team-based game. Don't think it's you versus the world, even in a situation when it is. Now, I'm one person, I have no faith in randos. If I find good randos, I bring them in, and they no longer are randos at that point. They're part of the inner circle. But that's my mentality with this game because of the amount of people that don't care. The people that don't put time and dedication in, I understand it's a game, that's fine. I'm somebody that does put in time and dedication. What you need to realize is don't let those people bring you down unless they're doing it on purpose. Yesterday, during the I Need Coffee live streams, there were 5 of them. Almost every single one had a troll in it. Somebody doing something that I had to go over to game chat for and chastise, like fucking Paladin's house mother, because they were intentionally doing, I felt they were intentionally doing shit to piss me off. And it was annoying. And there are people like that, I would rather have them sit and spawn. If you're not going to help the team, don't contribute to the problem. I've rambled on for too long. I'm going to cut the stream off. We're going to have some more streams later today when we actually get to some playtime, because now I've kind of cut my playtime down. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. I hope it's been helpful. I'll see you.